Hello, and welcome to Getting Set, a basic high school level set design course. I'm your instructor, Jason McIntyre. For today's lesson, we'll be talking about scale models. But let's back up a minute. So, you read the script. You read all of the descriptions and the relative information about the show. Then, you were off. You started to scribble down every thought you could possibly have about your design into your notebook, which pretty much looked like an illustrated fever dream. The director explained the concept, the costume designer was already pulling outfits, and you were waiting for inspiration. And then, it hits. You research the time period, the architecture, the geographic location, and the details that fit the style of your concept. Your drawing starts to take shape, but you have to be able to show the team what's in your head clearly. You bust out your ruler and start to dimension and scale what your scene will look like. How tall are the walls or the buildings? Where are the doors, the windows, or the benches? Is your scene cramped or is it sprawling? Is it an interior or an exterior? Aha! Now it's time for the ground plan. Now your scene starts to make sense to you because you can see from above how things relate to each other and how the characters will move in the world that you've created. You key your ground plan and set to work on your elevations. Interior walls, building exteriors, structures needed for pivotal action. Your pencil, your straight edge, and your ruler fly with precision and imagination. But you still don't think the design team is going to get it. Well, let me tell you something. You've just created everything that you need to display your model in 3D, more or less. By merging your ground plan with your elevations, you can build a scale model. Now, this is one of the best ways for a set designer to show their design with clarity and perspective. With the help of a scale model, a human figure of average size drawn to scale, we can show the height and size relationship of our set to the actor. We can also cut this out and mount it and use it like a game piece to move around our scale model. Now, when we build a scale model of this type with no color on it, it's called a white model. If you're all caught up, are you ready to build a white model? You're going to want to have a couple copies of your ground plan as well as your elevations before we get started. And these items. For this exercise, you will need an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of corrugated cardboard, a few strips of cardstock, a pair of scissors, a craft knife, a glue stick, some super glue, and a flat, smooth surface. Alright, you got everything? Before we start, you need to make sure that you have something to protect your worktop from the glue and something to protect your worktop from your craft knife. This is just a little piece of plastic about 1/8 inch thick that'll keep that knife from cutting into my worktop. So if we've got everything, let's go. Okay, so I've gone ahead and cut a piece of corrugated cardboard out of basically a cardboard box to 8.5 by 11. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue or laminate our ground plan down on top of that cardboard to create the base for our 1/4 inch scale model. So all we do is we get a glue stick, and I like the glue stick because it's easy to use, low mess, low odor, and you're just gonna give it a generous coating all around the border, get it all around that inside, give it a lot, so it sticks down pretty well. And then once you've got that, go ahead and turn it over and line it up. And you want to be careful that you don't have glue on your hands because that will
turn into giant smudge marks on your ground plan that you really don't want to have. So there's our ground plan glued down or laminated to our cardboard. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our elevations. Remember these guys? So we take our elevations, and for this particular ground plan we ended up doing 2 sets of elevations. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up cutting those apart into strips, and we want to make sure that we keep our letter key with the pieces that we're cutting apart, because as we see, once these are loose from the drawing, could get confusing if you turn them upside down, and you don't want to do that when you assemble your pieces. So once you get these cut out and fixed to the back of your construction board, soda pop cardboard, then flip them over and put your corresponding label on the back and a direction arrow, so that you don't get these things flipped around upside down and backwards with how you're going to mount them. So I've gone ahead and prepped all of our boards except for this last one, and just showing you that you want to make sure you get the back of your elevation piece covered pretty well, because it's going to see a lot of action from this point on. And then once you're ready, again, make sure that you're oriented correctly, and go ahead, slide it on there and stick it down. Now, the other reason why I like using the glue stick is because the glue stick doesn't actually bleed through the paper. There are some adhesives that you will use that you will get to this point, and it will destroy what you've been working on as soon as you go to apply it. So that's why I like using the glue stick on the board. So now that we've got these here, the next thing that we do is we go ahead and we cut them apart. So I'm going to start with this one on H. So again, we're not using like a craft knife. We're using scissors because the cardstock is easy enough to cut, and also the craft knife will dull and will catch and drag, and again it will wreck what you just glued down, so that you kind of have to start over again. And when we're dealing with presentation, presentation is everything. So I get a nice big pair of scissors and just go ahead and cut right along my drafting lines. And then once we've got that completed, push this out of the way. We're going to flip this over, right? Flip it over, and then on the back, just like you keyed your elevation to your ground plan, you're going to put your elevation symbol and give yourself an arrow, so when you're putting this stuff together, you know which direction it goes. Okay, so all of our pieces have been cut out and labeled on the back. What I should have told you, or what I failed to mention at the beginning of this lesson, is that you could also use your ground plan with your symbols on it, with your ground plan symbols on it, if that would help you to locate your set pieces easier in your construction. For me, I just think it looks too busy once you put together this beautiful model to have all of this extra stuff on there, so I chose not to use that, but you guys can go ahead and use that for this lesson. So now that our pieces are cut out, what we need to do next is we need to deal with this area over here. So what we're going to have to do is, again, with one of the copies that we've made, because we're not using any of our original drawings, we're making copies of everything. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do just like we did for our elevation pieces, and we're going to have to cut out this section of the ground plan so that we can build our platform and our stairs. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we've removed our stair and platform unit from our ground plan so that we can go ahead and build this model piece. Now, because of the thickness of our material equals 1 inch thick in 1/4 inch scale. We've had to make a few adjustments so that the finish length of our platform at the bottom was going to be 11 foot 4 inches. The height of our platform was going to be 18 inches, and the finished length at the top of the platform was going to be 7 foot 9.5. Now, because of the thickness of our material, we've had to subtract 1 inch from each side of the finished length of the platform at the bottom, as well as 1 inch on each side of the finished length at the top. We have made adjustments for the rise of our stairs and the run of our stairs, so that when it finishes, we end up with exactly what we drew, which is a stair that has a 6-inch rise with a 10-inch run. So because of the thickness, whatever material you're using, you do have to compensate for that thickness in order for your model to end up looking just the way you designed it. Alright, so now we got our platform and stair unit all built and ready to go. That was a fun little project. And so the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to move this guy out of the way, set him off to the side, and now we're going to put up our first wall. So we're going to start with our upstage center wall. And what we use is, I'm not using hot glue and I'm not using glue sticks for this. I'm going to use one of the super glue brands. So I like those better because they don't get everywhere, and hot glue kind of tends to be a bit of a mess. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our upstage center wall, and we're going to make sure that we're clean, ready to fit, no trimming has to go on, and then we're just going to go ahead and do our application and set ourselves right down here, and we'll get our first wall in. Kind of like a load-in of a very, very small scale. Ha 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 ha. Small scale load-in. So we're going to apply our glue very conservatively to our edge. Doesn't take much with this stuff. And then just go ahead, place yourself right on your first line, because everything's going to key off of this. And you do have to be patient. I also like this glue better than using hot glue, because hot glue tends to cool too fast and also creates gaps and spider webs and all kinds of stuff you don't like to deal with on your set piece. And look, just like magic. So now we are going to go ahead and key ourselves off of our next piece, and I think what we've got is our upstage wall J. So we'll go here with wall J, and again make sure that, see, I went ahead and put those labels on there. Make sure that we're facing the right direction, and we'll go ahead and we'll put J on. So our scale model is really taking shape right now. Got our doors in here. You can see that the light is really starting to be affected by the walls going up, and how the shadows are kind of moving around a little bit. So the last big pieces that we have to deal with is walls B and H. So that's our bookcase wall and our fireplace wall. We're going to add a little more depth and detail to them on this next round. So this just gives your model a little more intricacy, and really helps to tell the story of the room that your show is going to be taking place in. We have added some more depth and more dimension to our bookcase and to our fireplace. Now, our bookcase is originally 2 feet wide and 6'8" tall. We pushed that wall back about 8 inches. So the back wall of our bookcase now, so our bookcase is now 8 inches deep, plus or minus. And then we went over here to the fireplace, and we added depth to that, and we pushed it. The original opening is 3'8" and by 3'3", so we pushed it back 6 inches on each side and pushed it up and gave it this nice little ramp detail. So if you look across the back here, hopefully you can see that we've kind of just given it a little wedge look to it and flipped that around on its head, so that gives us a little more interesting depth there. And the same thing, just kind of a little pillbox on the back of our bookcase to give that extra push in depth, so that our white model looks a little more interesting and gives a little more descriptive detail about what is going on with our set. Alright, and there we have it, our 1/4 inch scale model, or our white model. This is just a better visualization to explain to the production staff, the director, even the actors, what we're doing, what we're looking at. We even added our scaling in here, basically average human height, so now we can see what the relationship is between the top of the doors, the bookcase, the windows. This all helps in communicating your design intent and vision.
Well, I hope you had fun, and I hope you learned something with this lesson. Until next time, I'll be getting ready while you're getting set.